Sensory needs are something that we have heard more and more about in recent years.
Yeah, it's not anything I heard about as a kid.
No, definitely not. And that's great. I'm so glad that the idea of sensory needs are being talked about more. However, I think that we often talk about them in a way that is pretty limited. Like when we hear about sensory needs, it's usually about little kids. And the conversation is often very specific to like things like an autism presentations or focused on like a couple sensory experiences like loud noises, use headphones, that kind of thing. Which, not to discredit any of those are super valid and important. The way that I'm thinking about this though is that a lot of neurodivergent people have increased sensory needs, and that actually this is a lot bigger than headphones and lighting.
Right. Yeah. And many neurodivergent people, myself included, have specific sensory needs that we have tried to ignore or downplay and maybe have not even realized or recognized them as sensory needs.
Totally. And not having those needs met is grating. It's this background thing that's just like draining our energy and attention.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about sensory needs for all neurodivergent people of all ages, why it's important that we take sensory needs seriously, how we can tune in to our kids' sensory needs and our own sensory needs, and what are the benefits of taking sensory needs seriously.
Welcome to Parenting Neurodivergent Humans. I'm Dr. Morgan Beidelman. I'm a psychologist, former teacher, parent to two kids, one of whom is neurodivergent, and I am neurodivergent myself.
And I'm Brianne Colpitz. I'm a school psychologist, parent to two neurodivergent kids, and I'm ADHD, which means I'm autistic and have ADHD.
Man, to be honest, even as a psychologist who supports neurodivergent people and as somebody who identifies as neurodivergent, I am still realizing my own sensory sensitivities. Like, I don't know if part of that is like being somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, but we were basically taught to ignore sensory cues from our bodies, or like at least nobody was talking about it. But I remember like if I said something felt like gross or weird, it was like, get over it, handle it, deal with it. It's not a big deal, was
Yeah,
definitely,
knock it off. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I remember wearing pantyhose. Oh my gosh, just like a little, I like have a visceral reaction. Or like when my dad got remarried, like I had to wear this like wreath on my head. And like in all the pictures, it's like cockeyed and my hair is up because I just was like,
Yeah.
the only time that I've ever been yelled at as a little kid in my life was at their wedding because they were like, "Knock it off, stop touching that thing." And I was like, I can't."
Yeah, great example. I think these needs were not understood as needs. They were understood or confused for slight preferences. Or, somebody's really particular. Like if your kid would prefer strawberry toothpaste, but mint is what you have, like, yeah, it's fine to say, hey, I hear you, but we have this and we're not going to waste it, but I can get the strawberry one the next time. But if your kid is having a sensory experience with mint toothpaste that's causing them distress, like they gag and they are about to throw up every time, causing them to avoid brushing their teeth, giving them anxiety, that's different. That's different.
Yes, yes, that is totally different. And if you don't dig in and really understand the experience, it's easy to look at it as entitled or spoiled. Honestly, like I've even done that with myself recently. And that's the response that so many adults have for themselves. And it's also the one that kids get most often, right? But avoiding something that's causing you anxiety, pain, literal discomfort, or just like really drains your energy and your regulation reserves or your attentional reserves, that's not spoiled or dramatic. Acknowledging that is healthy.
Absolutely. So let's dig in a bit more to what sensory needs are. All right, first, sensory needs can be things that feel really bad. I'm not talking like thinking, oh, gross, and moving on. I'm talking like skin crawling. You feel upset. Your brain and body try to avoid encountering this thing, like stress response situation. Okay. It's not that you think it's gross, it's that you feel it in your body. It's a visceral reaction. Like when Morgan said pantyhose, yeah, visceral reaction over here. And every neurodivergent person has a unique sensory profile, but some that come up over and over and over that are bothersome, things like clothing tags, socks, sunscreen, noisy spaces, slimy or sticky textures. Don't get me started on sticky stuff or glitter. Oh my God. Unexpected textures or unexpected moisture. Sorry, don't turn off the podcast. We're going to get to some other stuff. Okay. Not trying to trigger you here, because on the flip side, sensory needs can also be things that feel great to our nervous system and things that we find calming. Some people describe it as feeling like they can fully exhale. Like the ick feeling. It's not thinking, oh, this is nice. It's like an involuntary feeling in your body. Okay. And
Mhm.
again, everyone is different, but some common sensory experiences neurodivergent people gravitate to are soft blankets or pillows, clicking something like a pen, spinning something, swinging. I'm like swinging back and forth this whole time we've been recording, rocking, having a calm light, watching something like sand or fish move. I remember when I was little, just getting my eye stuck on something and just like I would say, "Oh, my eyes are stuck." It felt so good because it was just like limiting my visual input because I was just stuck at staring at something. But oh my God, I freaking love that. And I still do. I still do.
Oh, yeah, I was like, "Me too," to
Yeah.
this day, yeah, and to this day, I have 7 pillows on my bed. Like, we were somewhere, and I was like, "Oh, there's only 1 pillow on this bed," and the person was like, "Well, yeah." I was like, "I don't are you sleeping tonight?"
Where are the other six?
Like They looked at me like I was crazy, but I was like, I don't think I can sleep. I had to go get a pillow off of the couch, and then I was like, well, I can't put my head on a pillow couch, which I don't know. I was having a moment, and so then I took a t-shirt and put the t-shirt over, and it was like a whole thing. And and my family is like, you guys, you're crazy, and I was like, this will work. But, like, it was an exhale. It was a full exhale that was not gonna happen otherwise.
Do you ever wonder how your kid will find a job when they can't even find their shoes? The first step to teaching your kids to work the way that they're wired is helping them understand their intensity profile. I got a big dopamine hit learning about my intensities to be able to teach my own kids. Head over to our friends Intensity Hub and take the intensity quiz today at intensityhub.com.
What we often see is that neurodivergent people are struggling to do something that they want to do. They are avoiding it entirely. When they try to do it, it doesn't go well. That's kind of the experience that they're having. And then when we dig in, we realize that there's actually like a sensory aspect, a sensory experience that they're having that's not working for them. And oftentimes they didn't even realize it, myself included.
Yeah.
Like tuning, like tuning into our bodies to hear and listen and figure out our clues is a skill. And it's a skill that has to be perpetually practiced. It's not like we master it. And, there are very few of us that were taught that and have practiced that and have become good at it, especially people who are older. I think younger people hopefully have more of that, but generally it hasn't been taught to us. And it's not in our society kind of like an innate skill, right?
Right, right. We do expect people though to have
Yeah.
this innate skill, but we don't
Yeah,
teach it. And yeah,
right,
it can be
right.
difficult for a lot of brains out there.
It really can, and I think the thing that's even harder about it is that there's not like a single way to explore it, because the way you might go about exploring it might be different than how I would go about exploring it. So it's not even like we can give like a clear framework. We can give ideas, but everybody's exploration process is going to be a little bit different. For example, I have worked with many neurodivergent people who struggle with sleep, right? And when I ask them what impacts your sleep, they're just like, oh, I can't fall asleep right away. Usually, what they're saying is, I can't fall asleep. I can't stay asleep. My mind is racing. Like all of those things can certainly be true, right? But I often find that there's an additional layer that's kind of like happening in the background that's making the mind race more, that's making the prolonged access to sleep greater. And it can be things like the way that their pajamas feel, or the way that their sheets feel, or if their parents have like taught them a routine where they brush their teeth, they put lotion on before they go to bed. All of those things can actually make it worse. Like I have so many kids that don't really like the way that lotion feels. I don't like the way that lotion feels, right? And so I see that so often where the routine that they've been taught is actually contributing to their sensory experience and then making sleep harder. So anyway, so that's a really good example, and it delays like the thing that they are hoping for. Or in the kitchen, right? Somebody has a goal that they are going to do more cooking or whatever, but they can't even go into the kitchen. Or maybe they're supposed to clean the kitchen. Maybe it's their job to like do some type of cleaning, right? But there's this massive sensory experience that in the kitchen. The kitchen has so many things happening. Like there's the stickiness and the grossness of like things floating in the water, or like just so many things, and it can really be a lot. And so it looks like somebody is avoiding, well, I mean they are avoiding, but it looks like they're avoiding because they're defiant or
Like
whatever.
it's a choice. Like they're just like, no, or just, yeah.
Right, but in reality they're having the ick. So it's really important to start having conversations with them to figure out, like, is there something sensory happening here?
Yeah, so let me give an example because before we were pushing record here, Erica, who is our producer and editor, was telling us that she realized a few years ago at like age 35 that she was avoiding the kitchen because she hates unexpectedly stepping on something on the floor, like a little crumb or whatever. And where does that happen the most? Well, the kitchen. So the answer to her cooking wasn't to buy some gadget or like find a new recipe or shame herself or just never cook. It was to start wearing house shoes in the kitchen so her feet never touched the ground in any room, including the kitchen. And that was the solution that she needed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is such a perfect example. Classic sensory need example, right? And this is why neurodivergent people often benefit from specific advice and strategies that are tailored to them, because the average self help TikTok, like whatever it is, cooking, sleeping, lifestyle content isn't necessarily going to work for them, or might need to be tweaked a little bit. They might have to take some of those ideas and then N of one, figure out like what works for them, because it could be a texture thing, it could be a smell thing, there could be all of these little sensory things that are impacting them way more than other people.
Right. It's not just about bedtimes and like the routines.
Hi, Dr. Morgan here. I'm excited to announce a new group coaching that I'm running this fall just for parents of middle school and high school kids. I've heard from lots of you that there is just not enough out there that's targeted for parents of preteens and teens, and I agree. Preteens and teens are my favorite group of kids to work with, but they're often misunderstood. From technology to body changes to preparing them for adulthood, parenting a teen is so rewarding, and it's also a lot of work. And it's even more work somehow. It's like on steroids for parents of neurodivergent kids. So if that is you, check out the show notes for a link to my small group coaching. Over 4 weeks, we will dive into the unique needs of neurodivergent teens, problem solving your questions, and I will teach you some tips, tricks, and frameworks that you can use along the way and after our month together ends.
So, how do we take these needs seriously? So, we got some ideas for you. There's definitely some learning and unlearning that goes into this for most of us, especially if you're a parent raising a neurodivergent kid, realizing that you too are neurodivergent and you're trying to like parent differently, which is a lot of our listeners. So, here's 5 tips that can get you started. We can talk about sensory needs with our kids and normalize them existing and being important. We can help ourselves and our kids start to see the difference between something that's really bothering them and something that is a slight preference. We want them to be able to identify the difference between a breakfast bar not being their favorite or the texture giving them the ick that makes their stomach hurt. And they would choose to be hungry over eating it. Because that's a difference, right? Between a preference and a sensory need. When you do notice the ping of an ick, it's time to get curious, okay? Is it the texture? Is it the smell? Is it the sound? Then try to swap or shift that thing. Morgan has some really great sensory swap ideas on her Instagram page if you want to see some visuals of what some swaps could look like.
Yeah, and we actually started that series just like randomly based off of a conversation that was had where we were figuring out our own sensory needs. Anyways, like on the flip side, we also want to look at what does work for us. Like what is something that is relaxing or calming to your body? What's something that gives you that exhale? Is it a texture, a smell, a sound, a movement? Whatever those things are for you, just like we want to notice what's we want to avoid, we also want to be realizing what we want to seek and add more of into our days. And if you find that your kid is avoiding something that they're supposed to be doing and they're avoiding it because of a sensory need, see if there's a way to accommodate that or swap it for something else. Our goal is that everyone in our family contributes to the family system, not that everyone does every job. So you can get creative. Instead of having a meltdown after every meal because they have to touch something in the dishwasher, maybe there's another thing that they can do to contribute to cleaning up after a meal. Does that mean that, like, for their entire life, they don't take a dish to the dishwasher or do dishes? No, but it allows us to create systems that support the kid right now where they're at. And then there are going to be times when we will then help them explore alternatives.
Yeah. So it's going to take some time and practice, but if you start tuning in, that's the number one way you're going to figure this out. So, first of all, you got to tune into yourself and then model and narrate about your own lived experience and internal experience to your kid. I find that to be such a helpful strategy. And then you're going to be able to help your kid tune into themselves because they're seeing it modeled. And then once you've done this, you can figure out that you're less stressed, more regulated, and able to do more tasks that you want to do. So it is a process, y'all. It's not going to be linear. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that your kid might be refusing something not because they are trying to be a problem in your day, but because they really are having this experience internally that they can't even maybe put into words. So just tune into that because they may be giving you clues or cues that it is something, a sensory need or, experience that, again, it's hard to put into words, especially if this is not something that they've had modeled for them. So, again, that's why I'm saying tune into yourself and model that first, and then be able to tune into your kids so that you can make the shifts and changes that can support your family getting through this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that could also be fun to do with your kid if this is done in like a low stress way, like purposely put things that are the ick in front of them. And you do it too, right? Like they can pull things that they know are the ick for you. And then like recognizing the body sensation and then doing something that is more fun. And that's just a way to help increase that body awareness. And then you can go from there and start having ongoing conversations like, okay, is this annoying? Like I just like don't prefer it? Or is this like
Yeah, yeah, we're not talking exposure therapy here. We're talking about fun exploration and then putting words to feelings.
Yes, exactly. So that you can then later on when something's going on, you can be like, "Hey, are you having a similar feeling where you're just like, is this a visceral reaction or is this like an annoyance?"
Right.
And that way you have raised the awareness on the physiological experience and you've wrapped words around it so that you can have conversation. And then that way, like you're able to move through and remove some of those annoyances that are grinding on you all day long in the background. And to borrow from a previous episode, if we can recognize and remove some of those sensory needs, maybe we can add back some spoons, right?
Yes.
We have like,
Shout out to spoon theory.
yes. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go back one and listen to Spoon Theory. But the name of the game is trying to help your kid and yourself be able to remove some of those barriers that are grinding at you, help you be able to regulate and get through your day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week to talk about school conferences. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
If we're a good fit for you, find us on Instagram. Dr. Morgan is at Dr. Morgan Beidelman and Brienne is at It's Brienne Colpitts. And you can also find the podcast on YouTube and Patreon at Parenting Neurodivergent Humans. So check us out over on those platforms too.
As always, if you have a question or topic you want us to cover, send us a note. You can message us on Instagram or use the Google form in the show notes.
Thanks to our editor and producer, Erica Carpenter, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
All right, we're good.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Bye. Okay, I think we're good. We'll find out. I feel like I'm getting weirder and weirder as this is going on. Just a quick disclosure. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute a psychologist-client relationship and should not be used in place of an expert evaluation or therapy.
Well, that's if I sit up. I don't sit like that. I sit like that.
I was like, you never sit like that.
Hello, everyone.
You balance a book on your head the entire episode.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine that book would be like,
Yeah. Just go ahead and just bungee that sucker on, okay?